Hello and welcome back to part 13 of our hard surface modelling course for Maya, in which we're modelling this ship from start to finish. Last we left off, we made these nice window details and extra trim and bars in episode 12, and we cleaned up some of this and we made this trim section here at the back. In this episode we're going to work some more on this back section. There's a few technical things that we need to do, which I find easier just to sort of do afterwards. And tidy up the things that we've made, and that being that this portion here is just flat when in reality it needs to be curved, so it needs to be more of an arc like this. And then we also need a bit of a curve here as well, so we're going to be adding that in today using some bend deformers. I have gone ahead and grouped this section up into a group called just rear group. This for the time being I've called stern underscore right, and then we'll have stern underscore left later as well over on this side. And this portion here is just stern underscore back. So this is the part that we're going to be looking at for the time being. Right off the bat, we just want to make sure that our transformations are centered to this object. So we're just going to come up to modify and then center pivot. We're then going to come up to deform, non-linear, and then bend. So this is a very, very handy deformer. Much like the lattice deformer, it allows us to modify our objects using curves instead of actually doing it ourselves, and it means we can make larger changes without having to modify or like touch individual vertices, which can be a pain in the butt, especially at this stage. So I'm going to come to the side view and just make sure this bend here, this line here, sorry, is lining up with the angle of our rear section. What I'm then going to do is hold down J on the keyboard, which will angle snap this, and then just rotate this to the left until it sits horizontally instead of vertically. I'm going to go ahead and test. Okay, so I was just testing to see whether or not we're in the right axis there for curving. Looks like we're not, so we're going to hold down J again and then just rotate this up again in Y, just until that aligns with our back section. Okay, and then that will then allow us to add some curvatures to this. So we don't want it to be too much, nothing too crazy. Looking at my reference, seems like the bend isn't that extreme. It's somewhat subtle, so I don't think we'll go any further than this, to be honest. So we're just adding a bit of a bend here. We've done a curvature of like 6.8. I don't know if that's in degrees, but that's just what seemed to work for this. And then all I'm going to do is just pull this forward again, just because in doing so it's kind of sunken back inside of the ship. And you can see here as well, it's changed shape a little bit, so we just need to pull that back down and get that to sit nicely again. Around about here probably. We could even just snap that on like that. And there's a little bit of extra things that we can do to clean that up, but we'll get to that in a minute. I'm just going to make sure that this is actually centered on the grid, which, there we go, now it is. Okay, so this join, we can go ahead and fix that up in a bit. You can see here it's changed the angle that our stuff lines up a little bit at the back. That is okay. We can go ahead and fix all of that too. And that's why we just have one side. So what I will do is, this part seems to line up pretty nicely. I'm just going to select these things here. I'm just going to select these vertices in particular, and then we're going to do a lattice. We'll remove all of our divisions because we only want these ones, and then we'll just pull that back until that contacts, like so. Okay, then we'll go ahead and delete the history, and then we might need to raise this up a little bit more. So to do that, all we'll do is we'll select probably these vertices here and then raise this up a tad till that meets that point there. Okay, there we go, and now we have that slight curvature at the back which we're looking for. Not too extreme, just subtle. Makes it look like it has a bit more dimension to it. The next part that we need to do is add some curve to the base here. So to do that, we could use a bend deformer, but it's going to end up deforming more than we need. So what we'll actually do is use a lattice in this case, and we have to be careful because lattices are really good, but you know, if we added, let's say, 5 divisions right in S, and then Actually, just for example, let's go with 3, so we just have 1 in the middle. If I pull this up now, you can see it's kind of coming to a point, which is not what we want at all, right? We want like a nice arc here. So in order to do that, it can be a little tricky. So we're just going to remake our lattice. We only want 2 divisions in T. Instead, I'm probably going to add something like 7 divisions in S. And then we'll just gradually make the curve ourselves. Okay, so I'm going to come to the front view here, which is actually the back of our ship, for whatever reason. I think we just ended up building it that way. And then I'm just going to pull these up a little bit. And I'm going to start just by selecting all of them. Then we'll deselect these ones. And then we'll pull these up a little bit too. Then we'll deselect these, and then we'll pull this one up. So we're starting to add a little bit of a curve. And the trick is just to do this kind of gradually until we get the curve that we're looking for. So maybe we'll pull that up like that. That up like that. Okay, something like that. Okay, and because we're not picking these outside parts here, it's not making too much of a difference to the edges. Okay, let's smooth that out a little bit. Okay, and it's not perfect by any means, but we can go ahead and then clean that up some more. So what I'll probably do then is we'll select this entire side and then just delete that. So we just have this part. And then we're going to edit the edge flow of a couple of these objects, just to smooth out any of the kinks we might have created with our lattice deformer. Okay. Okay, that looks pretty good to me, so we'll just go ahead and reset the transforms on this and then duplicate these back over. And combine our objects back. Okay. So it's not a perfect curve, but honestly I don't mind that too much. I don't think we want this to look perfect anyway. This does now leave us with a little bit of a gap here, but that's okay, we can go ahead and fix that. So literally all we'll do is we could add a bend deformer to this guy too, but I think we'll just lattice it probably. So we'll put that down to maybe 5. And then we'll just pull this out till it contacts. Kind of like so. Okay, great. So that's given us our curve at the back. You can see here when we're looking at the side, we can actually see some of the back, which is exactly what we want. And now we can go ahead and start adding windows to this and cutting into it and adding the rest of the rear cabin as well. There's a bit we can clean up here, so we'll go ahead and do that too. This is going to be pretty straightforward. We're kind of just going to soft select this probably. Just pull that down and in a little bit. Again, I'm not too worried with things not joining up 100% correctly because I don't actually want them to. I would much rather have some like subtle wobbliness here and there, which I think looks quite nice. Just get rid of that intersection. Okay, cool. So that's that edit, and at this point we'll go on and then we'll start adding the windows at the back. Okay, so now let's go ahead and cut in the back windows. They are kind of recessed in this section here. So we're just going to go ahead and select all these faces. If you're not sure how I'm highlighting these like this, I'm just holding down tab and then left mouse dragging. You can see that line kind of lines up with our windows back here. So we're just going to take this, extrude, press W, and then push that in a bit. Not too much. Maybe about something like this. Not too far, because we're going to extrude again afterwards with the rest of our windows. You can see now we have a bit of the hole poking through, which obviously we don't want. We're going to go ahead and just remove some of these bits. So it's okay just to delete these faces, and then we're not really going to worry about patching those back up, just because we're not going to see it really, so it's not really the end of the world. So don't worry about that too much. Weirdly, we're not getting it on this side. Maybe that's because we pulled that back. But just to keep it even, we'll just fix it anyway. So, okay. Okay, cool. So now that we have that done, what I'm going to do is, instead of just extruding these faces in and making our window frames, I'm going to create a few template shapes first, because we need 7 windows back here. It's strangely an uneven amount of windows. I don't really know why they did that, but that's just how it is. So I'm going to take a cube, and then I'm going to kind of roughly get it to be the same size as these windows on the side here. So something like this maybe. And then we're going to bring that back around to the back and rotate that. And then what we're going to do is just place these in roughly the right area. So there's one smack bang in the middle here. If we come to our back view here, we can work this out. So these follow the curvature of this back piece, even slanting more towards the sides over here. So for the time being, we'll just fit them roughly to where they need to be. There needs to be 2 more windows in between here. So we're just going to eyeball this kinda. Just get even spacing. Something kind of like that. Okay. And then we'll just pull these up so they sit in the right place. Cool. Okay, what we're going to do next is we're going to pull these vertices down just to follow the curvature. Then we'll pull these over as well to follow the shape of that. And then we could just leave this going straight up, but we're actually going to pull that over a little bit too. Not quite as far. We kind of want this one to be very slanted, slightly slanted, and as we get towards the middle, no slant at all. You, on your model, may need to adjust the top portion as well. Ours is a bit more straight, so we'll just leave that as is. So that is our guide. I'm going to go ahead and just delete the other side of this because we don't need it for right now. And again, we don't want to have to edit both sides, right? We might as well save ourselves some time. Just going to fix this up here a moment. It looks like that's come disconnected. Okay, cool. So what I'm going to do next is I'm just going to select those and then isolate just that back piece, just so we can see what we're doing. It looks like this edge is pretty close to where this window is supposed to start, so I'm just going to shift that edge over. If there are any edges we can use, I'm just going to shift them over. So these don't need to come over too far, so we might as well use those. Kind of like this. Some of these you might have to rotate a little bit, but that's okay. If you need to slide it along the edge like this, just hold down Control and Shift, and that normally works pretty good. I'm not going to worry about them having perfectly lined up, because again, like I've said so many times at this point, it's like we don't want it to look perfect. So you save yourself a lot of stress. As long as you get the forms right, you save yourself a lot of stress worrying about things having like perfectly straight edges when they really don't need to, nor should they. Here we might actually have to add the edges ourselves, so I'm going to come into this view and then we'll just draw that in. Like so. Then we'll have to freehand this one, but that is okay. Just pull that down. Cool. Okay. Then it looks like we'll have to add the bottom sections. So there's going to be a bit of manual topology work here probably, but that's okay. Again, this one I'm going to leave slightly shorter than our guide, just for some extra difference. Let's go ahead and pull that over. Okay. Pretty much exactly like this. And then let's see what else we need to do. So we need to shift this edge over here to get that to line up. Like that. And then I think we just got to add in our bottom edge here now. Okay, there we go. What we're going to do from this point on is I'll sort of show you how to get the basic parts done for each section. And then I'll let you guys go ahead and go away and take that to sort of completion yourselves. Just because I think that's a better way to do it. And it will give you a chance to kind of experiment on your own. So I'll show you how to get the basic blocks in place, and then you can go ahead and detail it yourself as well. And if you do need help, then obviously feel free to send us an email or comment or anything like that, whatever works for you. Okay, that is our window holes. So we can go ahead and delete our guides. I'm going to turn off our wireframe. Okay, so that's our windows cut in. Roughly even spacing. Not too bothered if it's slightly different. Let's go ahead and just double check the topology is clean, which looks like it is. We can go ahead and duplicate this guy, bring him across, combine, edit mesh, and then merge again. Something else we're going to do as well now is I will delete some of these back faces here too, because there should be some room in here, right? Like this is an actual cabin, not just an empty space. And we're going to be able to see that through the windows, so we want to represent that properly. So we'll just delete all these faces that we don't need for now. And you can see we can actually see well back into the ship. Bit of a weird connection right now, but we can go ahead and fix that up later. Also, this hole is blocking our view, so don't worry, we'll fix that too. But right now, let's just stay focused on this part. Okay, next, let's go ahead and then select all of these edges and then do the exact same thing, extrude back. Add some thickness to that. Maybe something like that. Could be a bit too thick, but I like having some depth to it, so I'm not too bothered. Okay, cool. What else I'm going to do as well is, because we're not going to be doing incredibly detailed. Okay, so that is our window cutouts. You can see here we've got a bit of a gap beneath this, so a couple of things we can probably do. I think I'll just extrude these bits back. That's probably the quickest way to handle that. Just like this, then straight back. Okay, cool. So that's our windows back in there, and the scale looks pretty good to me. What we'll do next is I'm just going to isolate this guy and duplicate him. Isolate the duplicate. Then I am going to go ahead, select all these faces, or edges, sorry. Then I'm going to fill hole, and then these will be our windows, the actual glass. then I'm just going to extract these out. So, thinking about it, we had the opportunity to keep ours from earlier, and now I'm going to have to go ahead and remake those, which is a bit of a bummer, but it's not the end of the world. So I'll just quickly do this. Okay, cool. So that's our windows. I will go ahead and just extrude these forward a little bit to give them some thickness. Don't know whether I explained in the previous episode, but the main reason we do that is because when we render this, we want the glass to be physically accurate, and generally glass has thickness. Or of course, not generally, it does have thickness, right? It's a real object. Just realized I made that way too thick. Probably more like that. They didn't really have double glazed windows at the time. Probably got awfully cold in that cabin. So that's why we're adding thickness. I actually need to do that for these guys as well, so we'll go ahead and do that real quick. Again, not too thick. So just individual panes of glass. Okay, cool. Next, what we will do is, just get my reference up, add our bars. Thinking about it, I am a big dum-dum. And I'm wasting my time. And probably yours. We actually don't want to keep these edges. We want to get rid of them. Because they are just going to cause us headaches. And we don't want any of those, even though I keep causing them. So we'll just have these as flat, right? They probably won't be curved anyway. I don't think they had the technology to do it at the time. If they did, please correct me if I'm wrong. But the reason for that is because we're going to go ahead and duplicate these, and we want these to be our guides for the actual like window frames. So what I'll do is we'll come back to our insert edge loop tool and turn on the multi-edge, and I'm just going to do one in each axis, or vertically and horizontally, like so. Then, I've just realized, okay, it's just because I've come back to this after a week of not looking at it. We did this differently last time, didn't we? We had these all as individual panes of glass. So you can do it two different ways. You can either have them as individual panes of glass, or you can have them as not so individual panes of glass and just one piece. I think historically they would have been individual panes, probably. Don't quote me on that. But hey, let's just for this one go ahead and make them all one piece, one pane, for the sake of not having to do it again. If you want to have them all as individual, go ahead, be my guest. There really is the only benefit you might get from having them as individual is that you can adjust their angle slightly if you want some like nice difference in your specular. Generally, I probably would make them all separate because that's how they're made in real life, presumably. That's how you want to do things generally. But failing that, I would just do it how you like to do it. Okay. So now I just need to go ahead and select all these faces, and I will speed this part up again, and then we'll use these as our window frames. Okay, great. Now that we have those, I'm just going to do a select inverse and then delete. So we have those parts. Okay, so we now have our window frames. What I will do is pull them out slightly, and then we'll just extrude back. And we want them to come out the other side of the window to something like this. Just with a bit of thickness. Then we'll just reverse that. Cool. Okay. What I might do actually as well is pull all of these forward a little bit, just so they're not like right on the edge of that window frame. Something like that. Okay, cool. That's I think all the windows actually for this part. So there's a lot more detail that goes into this bit. It's not just as straightforward as just slapping the windows in and calling it a day. You could just leave it like that. It varied from ship to ship at the time how ornate stuff was. This one has some ornate details to it. But I will leave that up to you on how you want to add that. I'm going to go ahead and add in the part which will contain our details, if that makes sense. But I'm not going to finalize it. And you don't have to do it this way if you don't want to, but I'm just going to show you how I'll add my bit. Whenever I do stuff like this, I kind of like to make a separate piece. You've been seeing me do this whole time. Duplicate it off of the part we want it to be on top of, if that makes sense. And then just select the faces we need. So I'm just going to get all of these guys. These front ones here. You know what, actually let's just select half, because we're going to need to make some changes to this anyway. So we'll just select half. Something like this. Doesn't take too long. Just holding down tab to select all those. Select, inverse, delete. Okay, we're just going to flatten this off as well because that's looking a bit crusty. And then pull that up. Making sure that it sits on there properly. Like this. Okay, cool. Next thing I have to do is pull down these parts and have them connected. Basically, this is going to be a bit that sits over the top of what we have already and kind of add some extra shape to it. Kind of like this. Okay, and this will start to make sense in a minute. In fact, why don't I just kind of show you? This is what we're doing. So we have these arc of windows here, right? We have our 7 windows. So just count it again to make sure I'm not stupid. And then I'm adding this bit over the top here. So you can see it's got all these, it's kind of hard to make out. It looks like leafy details, but there's this bit here that kind of creates this alcove. We've got this arch, then another arch in here. So I'm just going to add that on top. This part here has to be a little bit thinner. So we'll probably half the size of it. And we'll clean up that topology in a minute. Generally when I'm like editing to models like this, I don't really like to edit the topology straight away. Kind of like to do it as we go. Otherwise, it just takes too long. Okay, then we're just going to adjust the angle so that it follows this bit kind of nicely. And that's the only part that comes down to meet the base here. So we don't have to do too much else there. This has an arch, so we want to come to the back view and then make sure these parts are nice and even on top. Then we're going to kind of pull them up a bit. We might need to add actually another edge in the middle. We'll clean that up in a minute. Something like this. Okay, then you know what, I'll take our original and turn that into a live surface just so I can kind of just easily move these vertices around without having to worry about sliding them properly. Then we want this to have a pretty high arch on it. So we'll pull these up. Just want to make sure that's sliding properly. Yeah, it is. Okay. We shouldn't get any pinching on this because the topology is dense enough. And this is kind of towards the end of the curve anyway, so I think it'll be okay. That's still not really high enough. It's a pretty high arch. Something like this. Maybe even higher. And then we're just going to move some of these vertices around just to make sure this is more like smooth transition. Or what we could do actually is go into quadrille mode and just smooth that out a bit. There's no harm in that. something like that. Okay, cool. Then we can turn off live surface, and then we have to add a bit of an arch in the middle. So, similar kind of situation. Let's think what we can do here. I think I'll actually draw that out myself with the multi-cut tool. This has to come up kind of high. Maybe up to somewhere like this. And then kind of gradually level off. And then we'll just have it come straight across. Like that. It looks like edge slide is turned on by default. So if that happens, it's just because it's got stuck on. So it just comes to the modeling toolkit underneath transform constraint. Just turn that to off. Okay, then we'll go ahead and delete the faces we don't need. Just those ones. Okay, cool. That looks pretty good to me. Let's go ahead and extrude. And then we'll just come straight out, kinda to the edge of that lip there. And then we'll delete these middle faces. Just gonna make sure these line up. Okay, reset transforms, copy over and scale in reverse. Okay, cool. And that's sort of the base of my detail section back here. So we do need to add actually one more thing that I nearly forgot to do, because there's this big gap here. We want to fill that in. So we're going to select these and just come straight back till that connects. Okay, cool. So that's got some nice depth in it back there, and it looks like a more of a complete cabin now, except for this side it's fallen off. We need to copy that over. Okay, and I'll leave that bit there. I'm not going to go ahead and add all these extra details on top. You could do that in a couple different ways. You could, depending on what reference you're looking at, you could model it all by hand. You could certainly just leave it blank. You could just have a big name on here if you like. It could even be your own name if you want to. You could take this into some sculpting software like ZBrush, or you could do it up in Blender. You could do it in Maya. Wouldn't recommend it. I would do Blender or ZBrush if you have access to either of those. We can maybe make another video on that later, but for the time being, I'll leave this up to you guys to detail. I am going to quickly go ahead and add some bevels to this, though, because this is looking pretty low subdivisions. And I don't like that too much. I'm also going to clean up these edges here, because I don't just want that terminating in some kind of crusty triangle. So we'll put that in the middle like that, and then we'll just connect these up like this. Okay, then the reason I'm doing this is just because anything that's curved, I kind of like to avoid triangles in general. It can create weird problems. It probably wouldn't be an issue on this ship, but still, just don't like it. It's a personal preference thing. You could leave it if you want to. I would recommend against getting rid of them most of the time in situations like this. Just make them quads, because it's not hard to do. We just kind of have to redirect the edge flow a bit. Tidy it up. Okay, cool. Now that that is mostly cleaned up, we do have an extra edge here. I'm going to leave it. You could add another one here, but then for me, it's not going to then follow this shape properly, and I don't like that too much. I've just noticed here we have a weird edge that we probably shouldn't have. Let's just kill that, because that's a bit gross. That will create problems, because we don't have an even topology anymore. It's a good thing we're paying more attention to this area, huh? Okay, Some of you guys might have spotted this already and fixed it. Let's fix that real quick. Oh, wrong vertice. Okay, cool. So now that's fixed, I'm going to go ahead and add some bevels to this guy. Because I want to add some curvature. And this part here is looking pretty low poly. We could actually add an extra level of subdivision to this, which I think I might do. Because I may go and sculpt this up later. So I'm going to go ahead and just select the edges that I want to keep hard, like we did way back in episode 2. And then subdivide it, using creasing and subdivide. Okay. So we'll just select these fellas. This one too? Maybe? Or maybe not. Do we select that one? Yeah, let's select it. Okay, and then we'll see what that looks like. It looks okay. Okay, so we're getting a weird problem here. Whenever you have bevels like this, especially if it's low poly, you kind of want an extra edge. Nope, we still have that turn on to double. Relative distance. So we kind of have to have an extra edge here so that when we subdivide it, it's nice and smooth and doesn't have like this weird... it just makes it look a bit sloppy when it's smoothed. So we'll go ahead and do it like that instead. Okay, then I'm just going to add one extra level of subdivisions. Hopefully our edge selection is still there. It isn't nice, thank you Maya. That's okay. Sometimes Maya be like that, that's alright. I guess for the time being, I will not... actually, yeah, let's go ahead and just clean that up, because it's going to bug me. So we'll just select everything that's supposed to be hard again. Thanks, Maya. It used to remember the edge selection. I don't know why it doesn't do that anymore. Maybe it's just Maya in particular hates me. Okay. Oh, these ones too. Okay, cool. So that is our detail piece back there. I'm going to quickly look at my reference. I don't think there's anything else to add. We kind of did it. I was putting this piece off for a while because, honestly, it's quite tough. It's one of the harder bits to do. There's a bit of cleanup here to do. I'll let you guys do that because I've already shown you how. And I think at this point, you probably have a pretty good understanding of how to do it. If you don't, again, feel free to reach out. Always happy to answer any of your questions. If you want to tell me that you hate the tutorial, that's okay too. Feel free to let us know. I don't like this though. That needs to fit properly, otherwise that's going to be a problem. Okay, cool. There is also, I think, some more bands to add here. Let me double check. Yeah, there is. No, we have one. There is a little band to add at the top of this. I'll go ahead and do that real quick. Okay, next now that we have this part done, I'm going to duplicate this stern right across, reset the transform. We do need to add bevels to all of this stuff. I think I've shown you guys how to do that. So before I would duplicate this across, I would go ahead and bevel it first, just because otherwise you're going to have to do it again. There's no point doing it twice. Just bevel it once, then duplicate it across to the other side. Save yourself a million years. I'm also going to duplicate this guy across. We do need to cut out some holes into him later. I don't know why I'm giving them like he-hims. I don't know why I'm gendering my bits of wood. That's a bit weird. But it's I just got used to it. Anyway, I'm blabbering. Let's also get rid of the creasing on this, because we don't want it to be creased. Okay, so we're going to add the next part of the deck, which comes up here, and it's the topmost portion of the deck of our ship. this back here now is probably the most detailed part we've made. I am really happy with how that's looking. That looks really spicy. I could look at that for a while, I think. I kind of wish I'd added more depth in the sides here, because that would look so much cooler, but anyway, I like how that came out. Okay, so to add this top portion of the deck here, what we're going to do is, you guessed it, we're going to duplicate this part of the deck, and we're going to reuse it. Because you should reuse everything. We're going to pull this up till it kind of meets around something like this. We're then going to start flattening him out a little bit. Just pulling it down. Let's have a little look at my reference again. So we kind of want this guy to almost be more flat, weirdly. So have it kind of start here at the top portion there, which looks weird, right? Because you're like, why would it be so high up like that? But they just are. I don't know why. Excuse me. We will then go ahead, deform, lattice, 2 divisions, and then we're going to pull this up a little bit so it does have some slant, but not too much. Something like that. Okay, cool. There is a bit of a railing that goes around this. Normally they have like some metal pipes, not pipes, metal banister type things that come up, and there's various different netting in here and they keep things in it, and there's also a bit of a railing that goes along. We'll go ahead and add that in a bit. For the time being, though we don't need to. I think also it might not come all the way down. It might just come up to the front. It's hard to tell sometimes. Because on some ships it comes all the way forward to the front here. On others it doesn't. I think on the HMS Victory it did come all the way forward. I've also just realised this should be a lot lower. Okay. That's interesting. Okay, so on this particular ship, looking at our reference actually, these are open air. So that means the deck needs to be a fair bit lower. But then they just have the second bit of deck here. Very weird. I think this is another case of the blueprints not being quite accurate, because I think anyone going underneath here would have to be very small. Does it not have... Maybe it... No, it must do, because these are higher. Very weird. Okay, I'm going to pause the recording, get back to you, and see if I can figure this out. Okay, I think I figured it out. So, okay, what I realized is, this part here, looking at the reference, the cabin is from the lower deck here. So, while these cannons are definitely higher than this part of the deck, you don't actually need to walk underneath here, right? This isn't like some sort of tiny ship for bathtubs. Like, you have to be 3 feet tall to fit underneath here or something. So, I think this is just a step. So we don't actually have to worry about people fitting under here. And this does still have some curve to it. And I've just kind of tried to get it to sit underneath these turrets, because, or not turrets, sorry, cannons, because they would have wheels at the bottom, and they probably come down a bit below where this hatch is. That wouldn't be quite at the deck level. So I've gone ahead and tidied this up so that it's not sticking out and showing any of the bits we don't want it to. They're kept inside like they should be. And then halved it just so we don't have to do it twice. And then we'll just recombine that and then merge. Okay, and then here we'll have to have some sort of steps coming up to that, so we can get to that in a second. But that is some pretty good progress, I would say. We need to cut some portholes in here, as you can see. I've already shown you guys how to do that. On this section, it'll be even easier because it doesn't really have the curve to it. So I would say go ahead and do that in your own time. If you need to refer back to how to do these portholes, just go back to the old episode. If not, let me know. I'll gladly make another video talking about it and how to do that again. This part also needs to be cut into a separate piece of wood, which I will do, and that will sort of give you an idea of how we're going to do the planks. Well, not planks, sorry, but you know what I mean. how we're going to do the portholes, because it will actually mean you have to cut out less. Okay, now that we've got that section, there's not too many railings tied to the ship. Some ships have more railings than others. This one, not a whole lot. There's a few little metal bar ones that I mentioned earlier, which you can find along here. These aren't that hard to make. We'll start with a cube, like normal. But they do have a little nuanced detail to them that you might not notice if you haven't done this before. But I've spent way too much time looking at boats. So I can go ahead and show you what you're supposed to do here. So they're quite narrow, right? You can probably find them in images of reference. Just look at the HMS Victory, you'll see them along the sides. They kind of will sit here. But they kind of will come out a bit further from the hull itself and then bend around and connect up, and then they're double-sided. So what we'll do is we'll take one like that, we'll take another one and put it maybe something like this. Okay, then what we'll do is combine these two objects. We're then going to Control 1 isolate them, and I'm just going to add an edge with multicut, pull this down till this looks square on the side, so that'll be the same thickness. Then we're going to go ahead and bridge those faces. Okay, and that's looking a little bit thinner than it should be, so I'll just pull that up. What I'm then going to do is, because we don't want this to be square on the bottom like this, we want it to be rounded. So I'll go ahead and merge these vertices, and then we're just going to add a bevel. Probably give it maybe 3 divisions, why not? Let's be generous. And then something like that. That's literally it. That's how those railings look. And then they're kind of just positioned along the ship like this. So you can see here, they're kind of like nicely evenly spaced. And then between them you have netting. I'll also go ahead and show you how to make that so you can fill in those gaps. Okay, cool. You might also need to, because the ship has a curvature to it, right? Go ahead and adjust these so that they're sitting on the top of the deck. Kind of like this. I'm going to have it so that the middle of that bottom bar that touches the hull is kind of in the middle of the edge. That seems to be about the right way to do it. Okay. Maybe something like this. I'll probably just speed this up as well. Okay, cool. So that is all of those bars fitted. Next, what I will do is go ahead and combine all of these, just so they're one object, to make it a lot easier to deal with. You can see they're following the curve of our hull. Next thing we need to do is actually add our netting. So that can seem really daunting and hard to do, but actually it's really easy. So all we're going to do is we will take a plane, bring that up like so. We're then going to get it to fit sort of between each span like so. Okay, I'm going to reduce the divisions to something like maybe 8 by 8, something like that. Okay, we'll then duplicate that across. Okay, I'm just going to reverse the normals on this side. combine the two. We'll then bridge these bottom bits like so. Make sure that's the right thickness as well, actually. Something like that. Oh. Okay, and we just want to make sure this is kind of square on the bottom. Okay, and the next thing we're going to do is just bevel this like that, and then delete any extra edges we don't want. Okay, cool. So you might be thinking, okay, that doesn't look anything like a net, and you'd be right, because it doesn't. I'm just going to edit edge flow to clean that up a bit, to make them a bit more uniform. Okay. What we'll do next is we are going to select each of these faces, like this. We're then going to go to poke face. Okay, and that's going to give us this crisscross pattern like this, right? We're then going to select everything and go to bevel. Maybe except for the outside edge. Actually, we might have to. You know what? Actually, I'm going to add a bit of an extrusion like this. Okay, now I'm going to select every other edge. Let's select all the edges. Actually, I just realized. Let's select all the edges except for these ones. So it's going to take a sec just to deselect. I didn't know you could do this when I first made these nets, so I had to make each individual triangle or X pattern and then connect them up and then warp them into shape. It was a pain in the ass, basically. This is a much better way of doing this. Okay, we're then going to go bevel and reduce the fraction a little bit to something like that. Maybe a tad bit bigger. Okay, cool. Then literally all we need to do is just delete the faces we don't need, which can take a little bit, but I genuinely think this way is a lot easier. Okay, so pretty much all you're looking to do is just delete the faces that aren't the ones you beveled. Do you see like this? Right, so inside this diamond, you want to keep these angular ones coming out like this, but delete these triangles. So I'll go ahead and pause the recording and come back to you when that's done. Okay, I've actually just realized what you can do is you can select this and then go to select and then similar, and then that's just going to select similar faces to the ones you want to delete. And then that saves you a lot of time having to do it manually, because it can just automatically select a bunch of them for you. Like if I just go ahead and select this face, then go to select and then similar. It doesn't catch all of them, but it catches most of them. And it means I'm not going here and then manually selecting a million different faces, which is very annoying to do. And I was fully prepared to do, and I did one side. But, you know, let's not be too stupid. Okay, I think that is it. Okay, so now that we've done that, we have this nice, like, netted surface, and that took hardly any time at all. And when I found out you could do this, I was literally gobsmacked. So we're now just going to extrude that in a little bit, like this. Then mesh display reverse, and there you go. You have some netting. I would then probably also go ahead and add some bevels to this. For the time being, I'm just going to crease it, just so it holds its shape. It also looks really uniform, and it's not 100% perfectly accurate like netting, but I think it gets the job done really quick. I like to go ahead and like warp these around a little bit like this afterwards, because like any net is not going to be perfectly straight like this, and this looks like it's just made out of like metal or something, and we don't want that. So I like to just go through and mess these up slightly, kind of like this, and then do the whole thing just so the pattern's not completely uniform. And then literally all you do is just go ahead and then duplicate these across, make sure they're hitting on the bars. If you need to as well, just soft select the thing. You can rotate it, squish it around. Honestly, the more messed up the looks, the better, as long as it's kind of connecting. If it looks saggy, perfect. You want it to look saggy because it's just nets. And then you can go ahead and then put all those across like that. And then really, I think that's there probably is some more railing to add on other parts of the ship, but that is how you generally create those. They'll sometimes be up here, sometimes along here as well, where the stairs go up, and even occasionally up here too. If you want to put them there, that's kind of up to you, but that's how you create that. And yeah, I think that will leave it for this episode. In the next episode, we are pretty much going to try and finish up the rest of this model. So I am going to show you how to make anything else that we might need to make that's quite big and more difficult and I haven't showed you how to make, including some of the details. I then want you guys to go ahead and fill all of that in yourself using the videos that we've made so far. If you have any questions, you can definitely just send them to us, email, comment, whatever works for you. We can reply and help you out with that. But yeah, I hope this video has been helpful, and I look forward to the next episode where we can actually get this guy finished, and then on the episode after that we'll get into how we might do some texturing. I think someone also mentioned how we could add like break these decks up into individual planks, and also how we'll do the below deck parts and these stairs up here. Absolutely, we'll be getting into that in the next episode. But for the time being, go ahead and detail up your rear cabin, add your railings where you need to, and then we'll look inwards. Hopefully by this point as well you've added all your portholes to everything. I still need to do mine, but you can just reuse this guy and then manipulate it. And then we'll look inwards, and then we'll finish up the interior decks, and then I'll show you how to add details to the masts, and then that should be it, and we can get to texturing in the last episode. So yeah, pretty exciting. Hope you enjoyed this episode, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.